Okay, so check this out. It was like and I didn't write the date because I forgot. It was really far back. They were called the Fox sisters. This is sort of like the rise of, the Fox, not Megan Fox or anything like that, or Vivica A. Fox. But there was like a rise of spiritual.
Does the fox say?
Ding 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 ding. I love that song. So stupid and so funny. Okay. I think we'll just bring up Fox stuff in everyone just so we can do that. During the rise of the spiritual movement, they did all these spiritual readings and psychic readings. And what they would do is, they said that for 35 years, they said that they claimed the dead communicated with them by tapping on a table. But then they were outs for frauds. They actually admitted that the taps were them cracking their toe joints. Isn't that gross? Ouch. So, yeah. There's, people have physical abilities that they can tie into this, too. Sylvia Browne. Now, she charged an astronomical amount of money, and she was way wrong a lot of the times. She reacted off people's reactions, and she did a lot of cold readings. She's dead now, but she's a well-known author, was very popular on the Montel Williams show, as everybody knew her from that.
He had her on all the time?
All the time. Yeah. First it just started out once in a while, and then it was like every week. It was like Sylvia Browne Tuesday or whatever. So, that was like the highest ratings, so he always had her on. But check this out. So in 2004, the parents of a missing kid named Sean Hornbeck, they came on the show. So Sylvia Browne, and I guess this is a well-known case. Sylvia Browne described the kidnapper, and she was way off. Like, she said he had dreadlocks, and I think she might have said he was Latino, but he had dreadlocks or something. And that he was real heavy. But she said that he was dead, and he'd be found between two boulders. Well, he was alive. And the guy that had him was like this thin white guy. So it wasn't at all what she said. But because it was such a well-known, popular case, like everybody...
It got a lot of attention.
Yeah. And then the one, I think I talked about it before, was those 3 girls from Cleveland that were kidnapped and held hostage by that Ariel Castro. Remember, they were held hostage for like 10 years. And then they escaped. Well, the first girl... Or the one girl, Amanda Berry, her parents actually were on Montel to talk to Sylvia Browne. And Sylvia said that she was dead somewhere in water. And, well, obviously she was alive because all 3 of them escaped. But here's what was interesting, where we talk about how the adversary and unclean spirits will use truth mixed with lies. So...
Well, understand, too, Sylvia Browne, that wasn't her 2004 and 5 and after that or whatever. Wasn't her prime. Okay, that was the end of her career, and she's pretty much been used by that point to do whatever the adversary wanted her to do, and he's starting to just, you see at that point, it was like, yeah, whatever.
Oh, yeah, he knew she was going to kick the bucket, so he was like, I'm just going to use it.
It seems weird, but it's like, he's only going to use you for when you, in his mind, is good enough to accomplish what I needed to do, I'm done with you. He's not your friend.
Right.
It's like, it's like anything else. You have... when the car quits running and it's done all it can do, what do? You probably just go get a new one. It's like you don't carry it along. It's like, that's it, we're done.
You know what I envision? I envision a dog with a toy. When it has a new toy and it likes it and uses it all the time, plays with it, and after a while they use it so much it becomes like, ripped and torn, and they rip it apart. Yeah, and I think that's what the adversary did to Sylvia Browne. Just ripped her apart.
Yeah, and he's like, okay, there you go. And these were big cases, like you said. I mean, why would she... shoot out that information if she didn't feel there was some truth to it somehow.
Yeah, and with her too, I don't know if she always said she had that spirit guide, Francine. So was Francine a demon? I believe she was, or it was.
Maybe Francine was on vacation at that moment.
Yeah, and I think half the time Sylvia Browne made up stuff just to wing it when she wasn't getting anything, and I think other times demons were leading her truth to get followers, and then we give her lies just because they enjoyed that. That's what they do. But with Amanda Berry, so she actually described Castro really, really well, what he looked like, and she said, I'm getting that he's dark skinned. He almost looks Cuban. Well, I think he was Latino, but his last name was Castro. So she described him well. And then the mom had asked her, will I ever see her again? And Sylvia Browne says, yeah, in heaven. Okay? So she already had said that Amanda died in water. But here's what's interesting is the mom will see her again in heaven because the mom had died before Amanda escaped. Like the year before Amanda escaped. She'd had a cancer. So the mom never did see her again. But, so, some of that is true. So some of Sylvia Browne's followers are like, oh, it was misinterpreted. This is what it really meant. So they're still believing her. And then there's other people who are like, no way, she was way off. She wasn't even dead.
But there was some truth in it.
Exactly.
So.
And that's how psychics work. John Edwards, you always do him real well.
John Edwards is ridiculous.
He's like...
I've seen him.
Yeah, he is funny. I used to like him, and then after a while...
A B, I think it's a B, no, a C. A C, the letter C. It's right after the C, which is the rest of the alphabet. It's like, really, dude?
I-O-U. Sometimes Y.
Dude, come on, really?
Yeah, he's bad.
He's bad.
I actually watched a video of him giving Dr. Phil, who's a real, strong therapist and mind guy, and John Edwards gives him a reading, and it is so generic, and Dr. Phil was buying into it. It looked like, oh yeah, and then he brought in the wife, and the wife was buying into it. I'm like, are you kidding me? Anybody could tell you this information. And then some of it, I think maybe John Edwards was doing a hot reading. I think he had some information about one of the camera guys because he somehow knew someone had been shot from a self-inflicted gunshot wound from suicide. He's like, but I'm getting from behind me, and I'm getting the letter K, and it just happened to be that the camera guy's roommate had, everybody, knows somebody that had this happen.
You get into there, he comes there early, and there's just a lot of talk. And questions and thoughts. And
yep, he'll hear something.
You just know what conversations to open up just to draw, And
a lot of those shows are edited,
yeah,
so you only see the good stuff. Yeah. Now my big question is, if these psychics hear from spirits, why don't the spirits just say the name or more info?
It doesn't work like that.
Yeah, exactly. So that's because demons are involved. We all make mistakes in every profession. All people state they're more qualified than they are, and psychics are pretty much the same. But with psychics, if they really have it, I think demons are involved most of the time until they have a hold on the spiritual gifts that God gives us, and they can start using it the way they're supposed to use it. Because if you're using it in the wrong way, you're just
I think I do believe there are people very sensitive to be able to hear that realm and go into it. And yeah, you're right. The tool can be used properly.
Yeah.
It can be, and it also can be misused. And unfortunately, for many who have these abilities, they may not even realize. They're like, well, I've never done anything to open up any gates or anything to cause me to have this ability, and I've just always had it. And of course, like you said, so because you had them, you dwelt a little farther, looking into this book and that thing, looking for answers as to why do I have it. And so for those listeners who might say, yeah, okay, I listened to this broadcast, you're making me feel bad because I have abilities and I've done stuff with them, it's kind of like, having this drill, not knowing how to use it, so you just start running around doing everything with it,
Yeah.
And that's where they are. And yeah, they're just like, hey, I don't know what to do with it. All I know is that it does something, and I'm going to do something with it. So I don't want them to feel bad, but know that there is on and off switches for it.
Right.
But that on and off switch can only be done through the Creator who have given you the
only
gift.
Should be done.
Should be done.
Yeah.
And so don't feel bad if you've got these gifts and you may be misusing them or misunderstanding why you have them. There can be a positive, good reason, and you can use it.
Yeah, because I always
to a positive
was
way.
Trying to use it in a positive way, always trying to help people. But problem was who I was getting my information from wasn't, was demonic. So that's a huge problem. Now, when we've got Bible history, they talk about prophets. But there's a difference because with those people, they heard from God. They spoke to God. God would give them visions or dreams or audibly hear his voice.
Right.
They never used tools to talk to God. So there's a little bit of a difference between a prophet of God and a psychic. A lot of people confuse those. They mention that, bring up Bible stuff.
Unless you've been into a place where you're going to hear from God, and I have, you have.
Yep.
And actually it happens quite often for us. When you get on the right side of the fence, you're going to see the right stuff.
Exactly.
When you're on the right side of the fence, you see all that's going on and how things are built and how things were made and what goes on. But when you're on the wrong side of the fence, you begin to just guess and think and your own thoughts. But I hear from God sometimes. Audible voice tells me this or tells me that, but these things are always to benefit me or instruct me or to guide me or straighten me out.
Like today at Walgreens, God told me to get inkjets because we were going to run out of ink, and I ignored it. And guess what? We ran out of ink.
We ran out of inkjets. I didn't know that. No, that happened to you?
So it did. But sometimes you hear that voice and you ignore it. And people are like, oh, that's intuition. No, I don't have intuition. I had no clue we were out of inkjets. I never use the printer. Except for like once a week for the podcast. So I don't know. So, and God will tell you, don't go that way. You just have a feeling not to go that way. And there was that movie about the diner where God was talking to these people and they didn't even realize he was talking to them until later. He said, do you remember that when I said this?
Oh, that's really, I like the way that was done.
Yeah, and so God will do that. And it's always a positive thing. God's never going to come to you and say, this person's going to die.
No, he doesn't do stuff like that.
Because you can't
usually it's usually on a person. But I've gotten information. God had spoke to me, and I remember he told me that one time. I remember our friend Mike. He had his grandfather there, and he said, "Go over there and ask him if he wants to be baptized." And so I just got up and I walked over to him, and an elderly man, in his 80s or whatever.
I think I do.
I says, and he knew me. And we were friends or whatever. I says, do you want to be baptized today? He just didn't know who to ask or how to ask or what to do. He didn't know.
Right.
And so when I asked him that question, he was very excited about the answer. So he's like, yeah, I do. I go, well, we'll do it today then, okay? But he didn't know what to do. So God was saying, I'm going to use you as a tool to go finish what this, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Complete my work.
Or when there's times where God will put people on our mind and, like where they're going to be sick or whatever, and God does that so we can pray and intervene in that sickness happening. So, but God's not going to say this person's going to get sick. And to leave it, and that's where psychics and demonic work with
because
people
God's
with
going
abilities.
wants a result, and the result is I need you to pray. So there's intervention.
Right. God's going to use this for good reason, positive reason, for a positive outcome.
Not just to give you some bad information and leave you hanging.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and he's going to tell you what to do with it.
This person's going to die. You're like, okay, now how do I feel better about this?
Although, we'll still fight it, though. Like me, I knew to get inkjets, and I just said, no, I'm not going to get inkjets. We don't need inkjets. So sometimes we fight it, too. So that can happen. When God says we can move a mountain with our faith.
Wait, hold on. I'm getting something right now.
Oh, no.
Buy a new car.
Buy a new car? Another car? I think God's saying to increase our driveway, is what he's saying, so that we can put more cars in it. Oh, God. Anyways.
He just wants me to get places quicker.
When God says we can move a mountain with our faith, that doesn't mean that we should walk up to a mountain and move it. It means that if
I
we
need to
had
stop doing that. That's what's caused all these earthquakes worldwide. I keep running around the mountains and telling them to move. And
I think the earthquakes are caused by your mouth flapping, because that is not true. You do not walk up to mountains and tell them.
I don't have any mountains here. So.
Well, there's a lot of stuff in the Bible that talks about seers that were by unclean spirits and about prophets of God.
Yeah, like in some scripture for you, Acts 16:16 through 18. It says, what voice should I use?
Your voice.
Or my voice, or should I use the voice that we use when we read biblical stuff?
Whatever you're comfortable with, Scott.
Well, I remember always listening when I was younger, and I used to listen to the Bible on at the time it was cassette. Oh. and it always had that one guy's deep voice, so I'll have to use that one because that's the way I heard the whole Bible. So.
Okay.
And it came to pass, as we went into prayer, a certain damsel possessed with a spirit of divination met us, which brought her masters much gain by soothsaying. The same followed Paul and us, and cried, saying, These men are the servants of the Most High God, which show unto us the way of salvation. And this did she many days. But Paul, being grieved, turned and said to the spirit, I command thee in the name of Jesus Christ, come out of her. And he came out the same hour.
So here it talks about a spirit of divination. So this is a spirit that helps her. She had people that she worked for, and she made money for them doing this. Here it talks about a spirit using this chick, and she decides she's going to start, or the spirit starts following the disciples around, sort of heckling them, and they got sick of it.
Heckling them, and just making, putting them. Yeah, heckling them, putting them on a pedestal, or doing something just to draw this attention.